You are listening to the Practicing the Art of Small Business podcast with Shannyn Merlo and Julie Parker. Enjoy this conversation about business, leadership, and the self-awareness journey to great success.
Hello, Julie, and hello, listeners to Practicing the Art of Small Business. Julie, it's been a while since we've done a recording. Guess what number we're up to?
2,523.
Close, not quite a cigar though. No, we're on episode number 56.
Oh, just as good. Fantastic. 56.
Yeah, 56. How have you been?
Really super. Thanks for asking. How have you been?
I've been super. I don't know if my little man's in the screen. Is my little man in the shot? Can you see him? If you're on the tubes, as you know, if you're listening to our dulcet...
They might be able to see it. They might be able to. Depends on what comes through in my recording.
Okay. Well, it depends. It depends if you want to know who I'm talking about with my little man. Get on the tubes and look at us. So I've just been hanging out with my little man. My little toxic, dependent relationship.
I was going to say something, but I stopped myself because many people would probably find it offensive, so I'll just keep my lips sealed.
Oh, look at you, self-censoring. Well done.
That was even a little bit too far for me.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so who is your little man, Shannyn?
Oh, yeah, hang on. Maybe I should
For the
show
people
out.
that are on the audio that can't see...
Oh, but look at that gorgeous little image. If you can't see, you need to seriously get on the tubes.
Beautiful.
That there is Razzle. He's a guide dog in training. He's now 11 months old. He's sort of looking at us like, what are you still doing? Are you still doing the work? I want to play. I want to walk. I want to do dog things, which he's not allowed to do anyway. So anyway, that's Razzle, my little man. Yeah, he's got a poor little guy. Can't sniff, can't play with other dogs, can't get pats. Not from anyone. I mean, obviously here, but not when he's out and about.
When he's off duty, he can get pats.
Yeah. We're talking about getting pats. What are we talking about today, Julie?
Well, we're asking the question of, is it time to draw a line in the sand? And why is this concept powerful? Because I feel like it's pretty powerful.
Now, should we start with you telling the story about the conversation we had last time we talked about this to bring this up as a topic? Because I wrote down that this would be a good topic. And then I can add on my example as to why I think it's a good topic, which validated the reason why we're doing it today.
Sounds terrific. So, the reason why this came up as a topic, and it's something that's come up a number of times over the years as a consultant, because one of the reasons why I get contacted by dental practices is that my team are dysfunctional. We've let things go for too long, and now we've got to do something about it. We have no idea what to do about it. And then I go down the pathway of doing some surveys, online surveys, and then one-on-one interviews with the team members as well. And quite often I end up making the same suggestion. It's drawing a line in the sand time, I feel like. And the drawing a line in the sand really does create this space of what we've been doing so far, what we've led to, this situation that we're all in. There's been all these reasons why we got here. We're all responsible for it, including the owners and the leaders of the organisation, managers, everyone's responsible for it. But that was then. This is now. The only way we can see a way forward is to really press reset and let's go from the ground up, recreate this team, this culture, this level of professionalism, the standards we have in this business. Let's re-identify everything, and we're all on this equal pegging now, all going back to that space of achieving those particular agreed upon goals.
And can you just reiterate, there was something really powerful that you said when we spoke, so you need to remember that, which was 2 weeks ago. There was just something really powerful about the way that you articulated that was then, we've got a new norm. And I don't know how you said it, but I'm going to ask you to try and say it again.
Well, it's interesting because I think dysfunction in a team, this may not be answering your question, let's hope so. If it's not, I'll just keep trying. But dysfunction within a team, it's never an overnight thing, is it? It always happens incrementally. It's like obesity. It happens incrementally. You don't wake up tomorrow morning and go, oh, damn, I'm 60 kilos overweight. It always happens a little bit by little bit. And it's it's because it happens so incrementally, that's where people start, the managers and the owners of the organisation, the leaders of the organisation, start to lose touch with how to fix things, because they keep having that thought of, we should have fixed this ages ago. Because when things start happening in a very minute, slow way, each individual lowering of the standard, relaxing of the rules, by themselves, they are quite meaningless and harmless. However, when it gets to the 20th, the 50th, the 100th time that we're relaxing the standards, that's where we're going, we never said yes to this. We said yes to the first and second time, the first 5 times, but we wouldn't, if we knew that it was going to lead to 100 times, we would never have said yes to this. And so very easily, I feel, we can get to a space where we go, we don't know what to do anymore, because we are so far from what we used to be, and we understand we should have controlled things a long time ago and brought things back into order a long time ago. So because of that, I feel that level of responsibility. How can I complain about it now? It's like I've brought this on myself. Because the other aspect that does happen when it's taking a period of time to get to the space where you're in right now is you've probably had team changeovers during that time as well. And so that all contributes to it. You get a new team member on board. What does a new team member want to do more than anything else? They want to be accepted and they want to be approved upon. And so they will try to conform, not to what they've been told is our level of professionalism, our standards, but they'll conform to what they see in reality around them. That's the group. That's the expectation that's set for them. And so then every time we have a new team member be replaced, each additional team member coming into the organisation is then an unwitting contributor to the further lowering of the standards. And so this concept of let's draw a line in the sand, I think it gives us all the permission to recognise everyone's played a role in this. It doesn't actually matter whose fault it is. What we do know is we need to change things from this point forward. We need to find where we're all working towards. And, you know, you mentioned before we started recording, get that team all involved in what success looks like. What are we going to accept in terms of team behaviour, customer service, standards, professionalism, etc., adherence to systems? What is the goal that we're working towards? But what has to happen with that as well, if we're truly drawing a line in the sand, we're making people accountable for their performance in getting there, but providing an enormous amount of support with people going forward as well. I feel like drawing a line in the sand, for those who miss the good old days where things were working far better, it gives them faith and hope for a brighter future, that we're going to return back to what was working before. And for newer team members that are part of the team that haven't known any better in that organisation, what it provides them with is great clarity in terms of things are shifting, so you need to change your behaviour. We're going to help you all along the way, but no longer will the old norm be acceptable in any way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of thoughts that I've had as you've been talking. I think the analogy that many of our listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with, just going back to kind of the original statement, is it's the frog in the boiling water. So if you put a frog into boiling water, it would jump out straight away and it'd jump away. But if you put it into the cold water and as you raise the temperature, it just doesn't even realise that it's in this boiling water. And so I guess that's the thing with drawing a line in the sand. It becomes that everyone is now out of the pot and it's a boiling pot. So there's a new standard. That line in the sand, we're not doing it anymore. It's too hot. We've boiled our frog. We're not doing it anymore. I'm going to keep going with the frog analogy. No, I'm not. I think that that's a really important thing to say. If you're starting to recognise that there's a bit of a toxic culture happening in the business, then it's going to continue to happen. And one of the things that leaders can do to evoke a change very quickly is to say, we've got a new norm, and the behaviour that we were tolerating in the past, we will no longer tolerate. This is your sort of warning. And I think my feeling is that when you make a determination that you're drawing a line in the sand, and you actually say, we are drawing a line in the sand, I think that you can be a little bit more, it's not the right language, but a little bit more militant, sort of zero tolerance with it.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like training Razzle, and I'm not in any way suggesting that we're training dogs here, but one thing with Razzle is I have to have zero tolerance with certain things in his training, because as soon as I let him have an inch, he will take the absolute mile. And so being able to say, this will not be tolerated, you've got no leeway on this. If we see this happening from this point forward, you're going to start being performance managed. That's how serious this line is in the sand. And it sounds all very serious, but it is when you say, no longer will we tolerate this.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. When you've got a pretty functional team, but some gossiping's coming into play, then you can just address that singular issue. However, quite often teams can, as we say, easily get to a point where there's so many things wrong. If you try to tackle each area individually, you would find trouble in gaining any progress, because everything gets tied back to a more basic fundamental problem that's going on. And that drawing a line in the sand allows us to really tackle everything at the same time by really kind of rebuilding what this team is all about and what we do.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I thought this would be a great topic is because I had a client of mine, and I suspect that there's some boiling frog scenario going on. And I said to this client, if you asked me how I would change it, I would go through a process. And so this introduces the process, Julie, of how we would change it. But I think if you've got difficulty in the business, I think the big point to start off with is to say, we are going to change things. Let people be part of the process and prepare them for change. A big part of change management is giving people certainty. People don't like change. Generally, people don't like change. So if you prepare them for change by telling them that things are going to change, it's going to be a different organisation on the other side, then people start to get more comfortable with the change. Because if you just implement without engagement, you're going to get far greater resistance because people don't like the uncertainty. So I think the first step in the how is to know that you want things to change and to start flagging that change is afoot.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right, people do resist change, and they need to have that what's in it for me in order to develop that enthusiasm and energy behind changing their behaviour. One of the hardest things we can do is shift away from our regular behaviour and do something new. And I think an important element of identifying, like you've got the whole team there, we're all involved in identifying what's a success look like. I think one of the things that can cloud our judgment in terms of what do we want to create here is we want to create that, but not with this team, not with these team members, that won't work. And I think we need to really separate ourselves away from our existing space and our existing individuals that we're working with and look more aspirational than that, because I think all sorts of things are absolutely possible when everyone's on the same page, and it will just limit back what you're aspiring to. It'll become a smaller picture, a smaller goal, because you don't think your existing team members are capable of it. But you may not achieve success because your goal is so small.
Mm-hmm. I've got a thought that I won't share yet. So, listeners and viewers, if you want to know my thoughts, stay with us. Going back on the how, just being really, really clear, I think the first step on the how is to get clear about what does that future state look like? What are our goals and aspirations? What are our expectations going to be? Would you do, on the how, would you do a current state analysis? So if you were the business owner and you were doing this independently, we, of course, as consultants would do a current state analysis, interviews, surveys, things like that as part of the engagement. But if you were a business owner who wanted to put a line in the sand and you just wanted to do this on your own, would you do a current state analysis? So you could say, here's where we are.
I absolutely will. I mean, it comes back to Sandy Roth's 6 questions that I think are so powerful, and they remain relevant in every situation I've ever come across. And these 6 questions are, the answer to these 6 questions will create your plan moving forward. Those 6 questions being, where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? What role will each one of us play in getting there? And how we're going to track that we're getting there.
Can I add a question? I know that this is her 6 questions, but
well, it was 5 questions. I added the how we're going to track that we're getting there. So now you add your question, and it will be all of our 7 questions.
Well, this is the clincher. What behaviours do we need to demonstrate in order to show that we're getting there? So yes, you can track it, but also like agreement on the behaviours. What specific behaviours can we see? Will we be able to observe when we know we're moving in this direction of this ideal sort of future state?
I like it. And that's kind of a link between how we're going to get there and what role will each one of us play in getting there. That kind of links that together, doesn't it? Where these are the desired behaviours, responses, ways of communicating, ways of interacting with clients, the way we turn up professionally. This is exactly what we are, because you can't get clearer than that. And that's what we need. That's what all your team members need. They need to have that extraordinary level of clarity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so would you ask those 6 questions as a workshop sort of scenario? Get people in the room, give them lunch?
I would certainly, what I would normally do is I send those 6 questions out in terms of a survey, as part of a survey.
Okay.
Of where have we been and where are we now and where would you like to go? We can figure out the other questions later on, what role will each one of us play, all the things. But what we do want to know, for example, there's a company that I've been working for recently, and they've had a lot of changes in their team and the company and operationally and all sorts of things. And so they've got long-standing team members that know and miss what it used to be like. Where it is right now, there's been some, big major changes, some recruitment as well going on, and they're not aware of how good it used to be. And so their picture of success is different to the ones that are more established in the organisation. And I think that's an important thing, that because sometimes I think, how relevant is the question, where have we been? But certainly with team dynamics, it becomes enormously relevant. Because usually people are coming to me and they'd be coming to you with the same thing. It used to be better, but now it's like this. And I think the whole team need to really fully appreciate that, even the ones that are more new to the organisation, to have it clearly explained to them, this is how it used to work here.
So I would, when I was sort of explaining to this client of mine what I would do, I said I would go through a culture change program. That's a sort of bit jargony, but it would, and it's basically about saying, what culture do we want to create? And I'd normally do values as part of that. So you might have existing values, but I would probably work with people and sort of say, this is the future vision of the organisation. This is our aspiration for the organisation. Would our values, as they are now, help us to get there? What behaviours do we need to be demonstrating for those values? Are we demonstrating them? What do we need to change? I love doing values sessions, and it's so powerful to actually get the team engaged and aligned with the behaviours that we actually want to foster. So the way a culture change program for me always starts with that vision, where are we heading, and the values that we need to live in order to achieve that vision. And I would never do it in isolation, because the more that you can engage the team in the process, the more that they're going to be on board with actually demonstrating those behaviours, the more that they can say, in order to show exceptional customer service, I would need to answer the phone within 2 rings, no matter what my role was. Okay, cool. Well, guess what you've signed yourself up for now? So it just means that people get on the bus when they're part of actually what colour are we going to paint the bus, and what music are we going to listen to on the bus. So that's how I would sort of start the process. And once I'd sort of gotten to defining that this is how it is, I said to the client, you need to now, once you've defined success and expectations, and it's very, very clear what they are, you as the leader need to be able to draw a line in the sand and actually not demand, but you need to have the strength to actually say, this is no longer tolerated, and be prepared to manage people out if that's the case. Because I think it's kind of like saying, we're no longer going to tolerate this, but then if you tolerate this, you've lost them. You're not going to get any culture change. If you really want change, I think that you've got to be a leader and say, this is no longer acceptable behaviour. We are not doing this. This is your first and final warning, sort of thing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. What I have found in my experience when I do the surveys and then one-on-ones with people in a confidential space, the level of clarity and depth of knowledge that I develop about what's going on is something that I think can only be achieved when people have got that kind of confidentiality around them, so they're safe to say whatever they like. It's been my experience that when we get a team together and we ask for frankness, the ones that don't like confrontation don't tend to speak up. The ones that do like confrontation can sometimes be passive aggressive and actually mentioning things that aren't the reality of what's going on. Everyone, and then after the fact, people go, "Well, no, she said that. That's not the case. Actually, she's the problem. I'm not the problem." And so I do like having those confidential one-on-ones to really get to the core of the issues that are going on and what their perception, why things got to the degree that they are, the level that they are right now, and what they see as success moving forward. And sometimes they'll say, "Oh, it's actually the boss. They're the worst leader of the group. They're the ones that exhibit the bad behaviour. They gossip. They aren't professional. They turn up late to every team meeting. All the things." Whereas in a group dynamic, they are unlikely to say all that in front of their boss.
I completely agree.
I think that is the first step. And I think also, when we're drawing a line in the sand, if we can bring it back to a family situation, you know how much I love the parent-child frame, and just a reminder for everyone, this is not to diminish the level of intelligence or maturity of the team members in an organisation. What it does do is highlight what effective leadership actually looks like and what is on your shoulders as a leader to move forward boldly. If over time, because of all the good reasons under the sun, the kids started not doing their homework, they weren't eating what was actually put in front of them, they were being too picky and choosy, and then the parents were starting to make 2 or 3 different meals every dinner time, because what was the harm the first time, but now it's happening all the time. They'd turn up, come home from social outings too late, the parents are up worrying about them, but they feel like they can't do anything about it. And little bit by little bit, over the expanse of the time of a few months, all of a sudden the family's no longer resembling a functional, loving, considerate family anymore. It's less than that. And so that's where the parents say, we know what a good family, how they behave. And so we're drawing a line in the sand and we're telling you what that is. but we're all going to be part of the plan moving forward. Everyone's going to be considered. We're going to have one-on-ones with everybody after we've told you the way we believe, the level of professionalism, the standards, the way we behave with one another and to clients. We're going to tell you what that is. But then we also, because quite often what also happens with these sort of dysfunctions as they bleed in is that team members start not being completely responsible for their own responsibilities anymore, and they aren't really fulfilling their role to the acceptable degree anymore, and it's been tolerated for such a long period of time. They think they are fulfilling their role effectively, and so I think even after we say to everyone, this is what we're aspiring to be, and we're going to get shared agreements. We're going to get everyone's input on the agreements and how we're going to behave with one another and what success looks like and what you're talking about, what specific behaviours indicate that we're achieving success in this space. Then one-on-ones with each individual team member, I think, is also important because, again, I think you need that circle of safety, that confidentiality to be able to garner from people how on board they are, what barriers they think they're going to have to go through to be able to achieve success, but also to re-clarify, just in case it's been lost along the way, this is your list of responsibilities here. This is your role. These are your areas of accountability. And again, I think so much of this is going to be that 50-50 deal. 50% is on the team members individually to bring that best performance forward, but 50% is on management and leadership to make sure they're creating the environment and providing the levels of support that are required in order to achieve success.
I think that your point, Julie, is a really great one. I would definitely always encourage an independent one-on-one interview because of exactly all the reasons that you've said. You're not going to get the nuance. You're not going to understand who your champions are going to be or who your antagonizers are going to be. And you've got to kind of deal with those as part of that journey. I think getting insights and finding out how the leader is contributing to the toxic culture, I think one of the greatest, most difficult parts of doing those interviews is I often feed back word for word what has been said about the leader to the leader, obviously de-identified, and I tell you what, I've seen a few red faces. Yeah. Because it can be really confronting, but actually that confronting, you can't, you can't disagree with how someone perceives you. That's how they're perceiving you. That's their experience of you. You can't argue against it. It's the way that you're doing stuff that's affecting them. So if you want them to be engaged in a change, then you as the leader are the one who has to adapt, not them.
And I think that level of discomfort that they feel there, that's a bit of a pattern interrupt. That could be just necessary as part of change and feeling that level of accountability that you need to feel as a leader for change as well. And I think there's two things I want to say. Number one is when I was doing some research around gossiping and how to control gossiping in the working environment, especially when for every culture in every part of the world, gossiping is part of how we all behave. So it's a very natural behavior that we're trying to fight against. But this one guy that I saw, it was a TED talk or some sort of presentation on it. He said there was one thing to create the plan. It's an anti-gossip policy here and all the things, and everyone's saying, nodding, yes, we agree. Put your hand up. Yep. I'm going to participate in that no gossiping policy. And they had a certain level of success, but success went through the roof when they had people sign their commitment. And I wonder if the drawing the line in the sand thing, because part of that is, if this doesn't appeal to you all, that's okay. You don't have to be part of this particular business and organisation, but we do ask that moving forward, only move forward with us if you are committed to it as well. And that commitment being a signature, I wonder if that aids in that level of accountability that people do feel.
I wrote down earlier in the conversation, this was the thing that I was going to bring up. That was very important. So I'm glad for those who stayed on. I think if you're going to draw a line in the sand or you're going to do any change program in your organisation, you do need to be prepared to lose staff. And I've had people say, oh, I don't want to define the values because what happens if I lose staff? Or I don't want to change that. What happens if the staff don't like it and then they leave? And I say, amazing, fantastic. They're not going to help you achieve that future state because they're not the right person. They're not going to live those behaviours. They're going to continue to be toxic. And as you were talking, I've gotten deep into Married at First Sight this season. I'm really sorry. It's awful. It's awful. But as you were talking about signing this commitment, if you don't watch Married at First Sight, I'm not going to judge you. Don't judge me. But each week the couples get on, there's a commitment ceremony, and they have to get on the couch and they have to write stay or leave. And that's the thing. It's like, okay, here's the new norm. Are you staying or leaving? This is your chance. We will support you as much as you like to leave at any time. Because if this does not align, if how we're going to do things does not align with the way that you do things or you want to do things, you're not going to be enjoying the journey anymore. I'm really sorry, but it's not how we're going to do it. So I think that commitment to say, the thing is, you're going to get people to sign, but then they're going to start looking for work anyway. So,
and that's all groovy. But I think you highlight a really important analogy there, because I don't know if analogy is the right word, metaphor, I don't know. But if you think as a loving couple, they go along to a marriage counsellor because things aren't working, and one of them says, I'm completely on board with changing, not a problem at all. And the other one goes, let's see how it suits me. Oh, I'm semi on board. I'm 50% there. Are they going to be successful? It takes two. And if there's 10 members of your team, it takes 10. Because if one person is stirring the pot or not pulling their weight, it's the response of the other people in that organisation to that bad attitude then makes sure that the dysfunction stays. And I'm bringing to mind a quote that Amina, my business buddy, said to me, and she found this quote by Steve Jobs, and I feel like it needs to be said here, because you're talking about values. One of the ways we do develop values, one of the ways they evolve over time, is when we go through bad times, such as bad team dysfunction, then we develop values around better team function. But the values, if we really truly use values to their most powerful way, we're using them in recruitment. And so you are letting the ones go that aren't on board, but you're recruiting the ones that those values speak to their heart. Now, Steve Jobs said, A players are self-policing. And that's a beautiful team where everyone is so committed to keeping and this is where it can be a benefit. You go through dysfunction, because when you come out of that dysfunction, you're so thankful for the way things are now. You protect it with your heart and soul. It's like a bad marriage. Once you've got back to happier times, you're like, oh, we can't go back there again. Like, let's do what we can to hang on to this. And so this is the thing. You want to be able to develop a team of people together who, because they are A players when it comes to maintaining professionalism, standards, interacting with each other in a very respectful and friendly and helpful way, these A players are self-policing. You don't have to be the one that's interacting every time thing goes awry. They're all doing it for you as well.
And that's the beauty of actually getting everyone involved. When everyone signs up to this is the new norm, I certainly encourage, when I'm doing a values change program or a culture program, I look at how do we formally hold each other accountable? What are we going to agree to actually do to drive the change in the values? So I actually say, how are we going to call people out if they're not aligning with these values? What are our agreed terms? Or how are we going to reward actually alignment with the values? Because you can't just kind of create them and stick them on the wall. These do need to become living, breathing, daily conversations. And you're right, values become part of your recruitment. And it's not that, we value teamwork. You write things into the ad that are like teamwork, but then you ask behavioural questions as part of your recruitment of, tell me about a time where you worked as a team. and you're listening for how they are interacting with others. Does that align with how you want people to be interacting? And values should always be part of your performance reviews, much more than just your KPIs, like your numbers of performance. These are behavioural. Are you behaving in alignment with our values? And being able to say yes or no and having a conversation around that. Although my preference is to not have any difficult conversations as performance review, as part of your annual performance reviews. If you've got a problem, it should be addressed ASAP. It's part of that feedback loop that just becomes part of your ongoing constant improvement for your organisation.
And I think that highlights one of the benefits. So if you do have a team that is completely dysfunctional, don't just resent the whole thing. As Charles always says, Charles Covess, there's benefits and drawbacks to everything. One of the benefits of getting to a point where we're drawing a line in the sand now is that the leaders of the organisation know that we can't just let things go a little bit at a time, because that's how we got here. And so that's one of the benefits, that the leaders of the organisation, they are addressing things swiftly because they know what they're trying to avoid. And I think the how to eat an elephant, it can feel like an enormous task to go from here all the way over to there. And it is, one bite at a time. And I think one of the wonderful supportive things that you can do once you've identified these are the behaviours we're going to be rolling out. So rather than saying to everyone, okay, now roll out those 50 behaviours from tomorrow on every day, which is unrealistic. Then what we're going to do is, like, every single week we're focusing on one. The whole team's focusing on the same thing. And so every morning you have that, morning huddle or whatever the thing is. And we acknowledge who in the moment as well. When someone if you've got an anti-gossiping process going on and somebody was trying to gossip, but then another team member said, "Oh, look, I'm not interested. Remember, we're not gossiping today, anymore." Then call them out straight away. Good on you, Shannyn. That's exactly what we want to see. That is awesome. So call out the positive, reward the behaviour you want repeated in the moment. Definitely, to address the ones that aren't going well in the moment as well, whenever the time permits, where it's reasonable, not in front of clients or other team members sometimes.
Yeah, definitely don't recommend doing performance management in front of everyone in the organisation. That's not respectful.
But then just, choose one every week. Work on that. Call out people who did it well that past week. What went well? What didn't go so well? Encourage everyone, because you're going to be doing it yourself. I gossiped a little bit. It's on me. I'm going to improve from this point forward. Make it very supportive. And then, because you are ticking off, maybe there's a chart in the staff room. These are the 50 areas we're going to improve in. So we ticked off one. We've done week one. We've ticked that off. It's gone really well. If we need a second week to do it, we take a second week. If we need to take a month to do it, we take a month. But we are progressively getting better and better all the time. We're checking in with one another. With those check-ins, we're getting greater and greater clarity about what success feels like, acts like, behaves like. And I think that's a very effective pathway moving forward. And then you're tracking how you're going with it by doing those sort of additional surveys, every maybe 3 months, maybe every month, depending on how bad things are, to make sure that we are on a positive trajectory forward.
Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to say, on that checklist of behaviours, that then becomes part of your constant improvement, that we've talked about before, that constant never-ending improvement. That just then becomes your annual, every week, first week of the year, we're covering off on this behaviour. That's our area of focus on the constant improvement. It's the 1%ers. So what's the 1% improvement that we can make this week on this behaviour? And it's amazing when you put focused attention on one thing, how quickly things change, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And you can see how, gosh, without this level of support, no wonder teams find it difficult to achieve this sort of success, because it does require a lot of time and energy. But gosh, it's worth it.
And I suppose that's the thing. Obviously, you and I are both consultants and we do this sort of thing, and we're always going to be like, get someone else in. But the investment that you make in getting a third party to do this will pay off in absolute spades, because it is very taxing to do it yourself. You're not going to get the depth of understanding of the unwritten ground rules in the organisation by asking the questions directly yourself. And you're not going to have the support of saying, oh, I'm having this difficulty, and being able to have someone else to bounce off to give suggestions and support you in being able to create that change ongoing. So I think that the last part of really putting a line in the sand is making sure that you've got support, external support in actually going through that program, because it is hard work, and it's why things often don't progress, because it's I did a video this week. You're pushing a rock up the hill, and you get 3/4 of the way up the hill, and you're like, this is just too hard. You let go of the rock, and then you end up back where you started. So it was all for naught. So don't do that. Get someone when you're 3/4 of the way up, and you're like, this is really hard. They come in and start pushing with you, and you get it to the top, and then the rock goes down, and everything's cruisy and easy.
And I think that's good, because when you bring an outside person in, it more so puts everyone on the same level, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no assumed...
Rather than the boss saying, this is what you're supposed to do, this is what I deem to be right and wrong, blah, blah, blah. You know, we need to all becoming... Because we all contributed to the way it ended up, we all need to be back on that equal pegging. We're all doing this together.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You get a third party in who there's no assumed knowledge. So you come in quite open to just, you know, okay, yes, there is a common theme going on here, and the business owner's not even aware of it. And are you aware that this person is quite toxic? Oh, no, they're my favourite person. Well, turns out they're a big issue in your business, and you know, so yes, yeah. Yeah. Well, Julie, do you think Mr. Razzle has done his best? It is walk and dinner time. He's about to lose his tiny mind after eating paper, pulling clothes off the rack, less his cotton socks. Should I do the wrap? And
I think do a rappity wrap.
Should I put a line under it and do a wrap?
That's fine.
All right, so should you draw a line in the sand? Well, yes, if you have got dysfunction in your team, it's not an overnight thing, but you can actually determine that from this point forward, overnight, we will no longer tolerate these behaviours. The important thing to note is you can say what success looks like, but if you're allowing behaviours that are contrary to that, no matter what you do, no matter how you onboard a new team member, they are going to conform with the status quo. So when you identify that you've got dysfunction in your team and it's not going to align with getting you to your future state, then it's probably time to do something about it and draw a line in the sand. How do you do that? First of all, define what success looks like. Ask the 6 questions. Julie, they are, really quickly again, the 6 questions. I've wrote them down, but you do them so well. Actually, 7 questions.
Yeah. Where have we been? Where are we now? Where are we going? How are we going to get there? What role will each one of us play in getting there? And how are we tracked that we're going to get there? Your 7th question, which throws in the middle there, is what?
What behaviours will we be demonstrating to show that we're on track?
Beautiful.
We want to, once we've decided on all of that, it's worthwhile having a married at first sight, a maths commitment ceremony. Are you going to stay or leave? Are you signing up to the new norm? Ensure that there's a way of rewarding those new behaviours and celebrating people who are acting in the way that you want to act, and be prepared to lose people who are no longer align with the future state. I love values. Get them on board and involved. Once you've got your values and you have got alignment, then your team players will self-police. I love that. And when you've decided what the new norm is going to be, having a checklist and every week focusing on one behaviour or one value or one thing that we're going to do in the new norm, the new line in the sand, can be really valuable. Have a can-I attitude always, that constant and never-ending improvement. And Julie and I really strongly believe that you should get us involved to support your businesses, because we'll do a better job than you on your own.
We're enormously skilled and talented, insightful, wise, witty, humorous at times.
at times, sometimes, depending on what your humour level is.
Yeah, that's right. Wonderfully capped. You know, what is it? No, run. Wonderful recaps, Shannyn. I love it. I love your summaries. Thank you so much. Nice to be back in the swing of things.
You know what? I've missed it. It's because readers, listeners, watchers, the reason is, honestly, I've been turning up to these meetings completely razzled by my razzle. My hair's unkempt, I'm wearing tracksuits, and I have no makeup on. I'm like, Julie, it's just not today. Not today. Bless his socks. But I got my makeup on today and I'm ready and raring to go.
Woohoo, baby. Set up for success, I tell you. Well, I look forward to seeing you next time, Shannyn.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, listeners. Catch you later. Bye.
See you later.